The billionaire forced a waitress to play the piano. Then one song left the entire room speechless. She had been on her feet for 6 hours straight. Nadia had learned a long time ago how to make herself invisible. Not in a sad way, in a useful way. You move fast, you smile when you need to, you refill the glasses before anyone even notices they are half empty, and you go home. That was the job. That was the whole job. And she was good at it. The restaurant she worked at was not the kind of place where normal people ate dinner. Ardent was up on the 42nd floor of a glass building in downtown Chicago, and everything about it, the lighting, the silence, the way the staff moved, was designed to make rich people feel like the rest of the world did not exist. Nadia had worked there for 2 years. She still had not gotten used to the quiet. It always felt like being inside a held breath. She had picked up an extra shift that night because her roommate's cat had destroyed the radiator somehow, and rent was due in 11 days, and she had exactly $342 in her account. So she was there, moving between tables, carrying plates that cost more than her daily wage. The piano in the corner had not been played in almost a year. It sat near the far window, this big dark thing, facing the city lights. Nadia dusted it every Tuesday morning before the lunch crowd came in. She had never once been asked to play it. She never told anyone she could. Table 7 arrived at 8:15. She knew the man before she even crossed the room. Not because she had met him, she had not, but because she had worked this floor long enough to know the type. He walked in and the energy in the room shifted, the way it does when someone important enters a space and everyone pretends not to notice. 6 men in suits followed behind him. They were all laughing at something he must have said. She noticed the laugh came about 2 seconds too late. The kind of laugh that was not really a laugh. His name was Richard Cole. She would find this out later. For now she just knew he was the kind of man who made the room smaller. She took their order. He did not look at her once. She was used to that too. The meal moved along the way these things do. Steak, wine, more wine, hushed conversations about money or power or both. The same conversation she heard every night, just with different faces. Nadia kept her head down and did her job. She brought bread. She cleared plates. She became part of the furniture. It was around the second bottle of wine when he noticed the piano. She was refilling water glasses when she felt it. That particular stillness, the kind that means someone is watching you. She looked up and Richard Cole was staring directly at her. Not at the table next to her, not past her, at her. And then he pointed, not at her face, at her hands. Then he pointed at the piano. "Play something," he said. Not a question, not even really a request. The word came out of him the way water comes out of a tap, like it had never occurred to him that it might not flow. The table went quiet. Nadia stood very still for a moment. Her jaw tightened in that way it does when she is deciding between what she wants to say and what she is going to say. "I'm not the entertainment, sir," she said. Her voice was even. "I can call someone from the front if—" "I saw you," he said. He leaned back in his chair like a man who had nowhere to be and no one who could make him move. "Last Tuesday, you were touching the keys. I was leaving late. You thought the room was empty." She had thought the room was empty. She had been touching the keys, just resting her hands on them. The way you press on a bruise, not hard enough to play, just enough to feel it. Deshawn, her manager, appeared beside her. He had the look of a man doing very fast math in his head. He gave her the smallest possible nod, the kind that means, "I know, I'm sorry, please just do it." She looked at the piano. She looked at the city lights through the window. Fine, she thought. Fine. She walked across the room and sat down on the bench. The table did not go quiet when she sat. That is an important thing to understand. Nobody stopped eating. Nobody leaned forward. Richard Cole said something and the suits laughed their delayed laugh. Someone poured more wine. A fork clinked against a plate. Nadia was, as far as the room was concerned, background noise before she had even begun. She adjusted the bench. She placed her hands over the keys and just breathed for a second. She could play something safe, something soft and forgettable, the kind of music that lives between conversations and does not interrupt anything. She knew pieces like that. She had learned plenty of them. But her hands went somewhere else. She played her mother's song. It was not a famous piece. It was not anything you would find in a book or hear on the radio. Her mother had written it years ago on a second-hand upright piano in their apartment in Laredo, a small, quiet woman who made things just for herself and never once thought to name them. She would play it in the evening sometimes, stop after a few minutes, and say, "That is enough of that," and go back to whatever she was doing. Nadia had never performed it for anyone. She barely played it herself anymore. It lived in her the way grief lives, not in the mind exactly, more in the body, in the hands. She had not touched a piano since the funeral. That had been 3 years ago. She closed her eyes and let her hands remember. The melody was simple, not complicated or showy. It was the kind of thing that made you feel like you had heard it before, even if you definitely had not. There was something in it that felt like late afternoon light coming through curtains, like the smell of something cooking that you will never have again, like the specific ache of missing a person who was very ordinary and absolutely everything. The forks stopped first, not all at once. One by one, across the room, people set things down without noticing they were doing it. A woman at the table near the window stopped talking mid-sentence. One of the suits at Richard Cole's table put his wine glass down and did not pick it back up. Richard Cole went very still. Nadia did not see any of this. She was not in that room anymore. She was 9 years old and sitting on the floor of a small apartment, watching her mother's hands move across the keys, and the city outside was Laredo, and it was evening, and everything was fine. She played 3 minutes and 40 seconds. That was how long her mother always played it before stopping. The last note came, and then it was gone, and the room was completely, absolutely silent. Not the polite silence of people waiting for something to end. The other kind. The kind that happens when a room full of people all feel the same thing at the same time and nobody knows what to do with it. Then someone started clapping, and it broke, and everyone else followed, scattered at first, then steady. The woman near the window was pressing 2 fingers to her lips like she was holding something in. One of the suits was looking at the table. The man who laughed 2 seconds too late was not laughing now. Nadia opened her eyes. She stood up from the bench and smoothed her apron and walked back toward the kitchen. Her face was completely calm, the kind of calm that costs something. Richard Cole watched her cross the room. He did not applaud, he just watched. She did not look at him. The rest of the shift passed the way shifts do. More plates, more glasses, more invisible work. Nobody at table 7 said anything to her when she came back to check on them. One of the men said thank you when she refilled his water. She nodded and moved on. Richard Cole, when he finally left, did not say a word to her. She told herself she was fine with that. Before she clocked out, Deshaun caught up to her near the staff room. He handed her an envelope. White, plain, her name written on the front in handwriting she did not recognize. She opened it on the bus home. Inside was a business card. Richard Cole's name, his company, a phone number on the back, not an assistance extension, just a number. And below that, in the same handwriting from the envelope, there is a foundation, music programs for children who cannot afford lessons. If you would want to be part of it, call. She read it twice. Then she put it back in the envelope. She rode the rest of the way home looking out the window at the city going by. She thought about saying no. She thought about how that man had pointed at her like she was a thing in a room, and how nobody had asked for her name, and how she had spent 3 years keeping that song locked somewhere in her hands where nobody could find it. She thought about her mother stopping after 3 minutes and 40 seconds every time, going back to the kitchen, never once explaining why that was enough. She thought about a little girl sitting on a floor in Laredo listening. She got home. She sat on the edge of her bed without turning the lights on. She found a voice memo on her phone. 3 years old, the recording quality bad, wind noise in the background, her mother's hands, that melody, thin and small through the phone speaker in the dark room. She listened to all 3 minutes and 40 seconds of it. Then she saved Richard Cole's number. She did not name it after him. She typed 2 words and put the phone down. Enough of that. She did not call that night. But she did not delete the number either.